Smell hit me first. Not flowers, not antiseptic, just the particular stainless of a room where the air hasn't moved in hours. My own apartment. I stood in the doorway for a moment, rolling suitcase handle still in my grip, coat still on. And something about the stillness felt wrong in a way I couldn't name yet. I'd been gone for 11 weeks. I set my keys on the counter the way I always did, in the little ceramic bowl my grandmother left me, and told myself the weird feeling in my chest was just jet lag, just re-entry, just what it feels like to come home after 3 months in another time zone. I was wrong, but I didn't know that yet. I should explain who I am and who I was before all of this. My name is Vivian, I'm 31, I'm a compliance auditor. I spend my professional life looking for discrepancies in financial records, which is either funny or heartbreaking depending on how you look at what happened next. I'm organized. I keep spreadsheets for my grocery budget. I have a folder on my laptop labeled Important Documents with subfolders inside it. I am by most measures not someone this should happen to. My mother's name is Patricia. My sister's name is Brooke. And for most of my life, I understood implicitly, without anyone ever saying it directly, that Brooke was the one who mattered. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. The way favoritism usually is. Brooke got the car for her 16th birthday. I got a handshake and a Walmart gift card. Brooke's college application was a family project. My mother drove her to campus visits, edited her essays, flew with her to orientation. I commuted to a state school and worked 25 hours a week to cover what my scholarships didn't. When I graduated, my mother said, "That's nice, honey," and asked if I was coming to Brooke's dance recital that weekend. I love my sister anyway. I want to be clear about that. I loved her the way you love someone you grew up beside, even when the scoreboard has never been fair. You learn to stop looking at the scoreboard. The opportunity came through my company. 3 months embedded with an international partner firm in their London office, compliance review, process alignment, the kind of thing that looks exceptional on a resume and pays a daily expense stipend on top of your salary. I'd been waiting for an assignment like this for 4 years. The problem was practical. I'd been saving for a down payment, $72,000 in a high-yield savings account, earmarked untouched. My checking was connected to it. I had automatic transfers, bills, everything linked. My mother had been on my account since I was 19. Back then, it made sense. I was a college freshman in a new city. She wanted to be able to help if something went wrong. I'd never changed it. It had never occurred to me to change it, because in 12 years, she had never once touched anything that wasn't hers. That was the assumption I took with me to London. That was the thing I didn't question. She offered to check my mail, water the plant on my balcony, make sure nothing looked wrong with the apartment. I said thank you. I meant it. I left on a Tuesday in early March. London was grey and beautiful and busy in the way I needed. The work was demanding. 12-hour days sometimes, the kind of focus that narrows your whole world down to the task in front of you. I called home every Sunday. My mother asked about the weather. She asked whether I was eating enough vegetables. She did not, at any point in 11 weeks, mention the money. I came home on a Saturday. I cleared customs, took the train, took a cab, let myself in, stood in the doorway with my suitcase, the weird feeling in my chest. I made tea, I unpacked. I went to bed early because my body thought it was 3 a.m. I didn't open my banking app until Sunday morning. I remember the exact moment. I was sitting at my kitchen table with coffee, still in the oversized t-shirt I'd slept in, morning light coming through the window. I was going to check that my automatic rent payment had cleared. Routine. Mechanical. The balance in my savings account was $4,211. I stared at it. I refreshed the page. $4,211. I scrolled to the transaction history with hands that had gone very still and very cold. What I saw was not one large withdrawal. It was 17 transactions over 9 weeks. $3,000 here, $5,000 there. Twice in 1 week. Then nothing for 10 days, then $8,000 at once. Transferred out to an external account I didn't recognize. A routing number I had never seen before. Nearly $68,000. Gone. I sat at that table for a long time without moving. I want to tell you that I called my mother immediately, that I confronted her, that there was a scene. There wasn't. Not yet. Because there was a part of my brain, the auditor part, the spreadsheet part, the part that had grown up believing my mother was fundamentally safe, that was still trying to find another explanation. Fraud, maybe. A hack. An error. Banks make errors. I called my bank's fraud line. I was on hold for 40 minutes. When I finally spoke to someone, I walked through the transactions one by one. The representative pulled up the account history and confirmed that each transfer had been initiated from a verified device. The login credentials were correct. The security questions were answered correctly. From the bank's perspective, these were authorized. Is there anyone else who has access to this account? She asked. I closed my eyes. My mother, I said. The silence on the other end lasted just a bit too long. I called my mother that afternoon. I kept my voice level. I told her I was looking at my account balance and I needed her to help me understand what had happened. She sighed. Not guiltily. Heavily, like I was the one inconveniencing her. I was going to tell you, she said. Tell me what? We had some things come up. You have more than enough, Vivian. You've always been so careful with money, I knew you wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't miss $68,000. I asked her what the money had been spent on. She said some of it was bills. She didn't specify which bills, for which household, owed to whom. Some of it, she said, was for Brooke's situation. What situation? I asked. Another pause, and then, with the particular tone she uses when she's decided something is already decided, Brooke is getting married. We wanted to make sure she had a beautiful wedding. You know how important this is to her. I didn't say anything for a long time. I need you to put it back, I said finally. Vivian, all of it. I need you to put it back. We don't have it to put back. It's already… She stopped. Started again. I thought you'd understand. You've always been the responsible one. You can rebuild. Brooke needs this more than you do. I hung up. I sat in the dark for most of that evening, not crying. Not in shock exactly. More like something had been confirmed that I had spent 31 years refusing to confirm. My mother didn't call back that night. My sister texted me the next morning. It was 3 sentences. Mom told me you're upset. I'm sorry you feel that way. Please don't ruin this for me. I didn't respond. I spent that day rebuilding my timeline, transaction, cross-reference with dates, amounts, destinations. Then I called a lawyer. The attorney I found specialized in financial fraud and civil litigation. Her name was Christine, and she had the particular manner of someone who has heard every version of this story and is no longer surprised by any of it. I sat across from her desk and walked her through everything. The account access, the withdrawals, the timeline, my mother's admission on the phone. She asked me a question I hadn't expected. Did you record that call? I had not. In my state, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Single-party consent means only one person in a conversation needs to know it's being recorded, and I was that person. But I hadn't recorded it. You have the transaction history, Christine said. You have the account records. You have her as an authorized user and no documentation, no loan agreement, no gift agreement, nothing in writing that would indicate this was consensual. That's actually a cleaner case than most I see. She explained my options. Civil lawsuit to recover the funds, damages, potential attorney fees. A separate referral to law enforcement for criminal charges, which she recommended I pursue independently. Wire fraud, theft by deception, financial elder. Well, not elder abuse, since I was the younger party. Financial exploitation of a family member. Forgery, if any signatures had been used on loan applications for Brooke's wedding. Criminal and civil run on separate tracks, she told me. The criminal process takes longer and you don't control it. The DA's office decides whether to prosecute. But filing a police report establishes an official record, and it matters. I filed the police report that Thursday. My mother found out the following Tuesday. I don't know how she found out. Probably the detective who called to take her statement. I'd been told that was part of the process. What I know is that at 7:14 p.m. she called me 7 times in a row. And when I didn't answer, she texted, "I cannot believe you would do this to this family. We are your blood. I made mistakes, but you are destroying us over money." Then my aunt called. Then my cousin. Then Brooke herself, who had apparently moved past "I'm sorry you feel that way" into something considerably less measured. "You're going to ruin everything," Brooke said. "The venue is booked. The dress is bought. Do you understand what you're doing?" "I understand exactly what I'm doing," I said. "This is about jealousy. This has always been about jealousy. You've never been happy for me, not once in your life." I thought about the Walmart gift card. I thought about the campus visits I took alone, the orientation I navigated by myself with a printed map and a dining hall meal plan. I thought about every Sunday phone call from London, my mother asking about vegetables, knowing the whole time. "I want my money back," I said. "That's what this is about." She hung up. 3 days later, I received a card in the mail from my mother. Inside it, in her handwriting, "Maybe I should have only had one daughter. Would have been simpler for everyone." I stood in my kitchen and held that card for a long time. Then I put it in the folder labeled Important Documents. Evidence is evidence. The civil case moved faster than I expected. Christine filed in district court. My mother retained an attorney of her own, paid for, I later learned, by Brooke's fiancé's parents, which said something about the web of obligation Brooke moved through that I apparently did not. The discovery process was where things got uncomfortable for my mother's side. Christine subpoenaed the external account the funds had been transferred into. It was a joint account between my mother and Brooke. From there, Christine traced exactly where the money went: $19,000 to the wedding venue deposit, $14,000 to a catering company, $18,500 to a dress boutique in Scottsdale, the remainder split between other vendors and what appeared to be my mother's personal credit card balance. My mother's attorney argued the transfers were an informal family loan, that I had implied consent by leaving her on the account, that she had every intention of repaying it. Christine asked in deposition for any documentation of this loan. Any text message, email, voicemail, anything in which I had agreed to lend my mother money for my sister's wedding. There was none. The judge was not impressed. Here's something people don't always understand about civil cases. You can win and still feel like you lost something. Not the case. Something else. The judgment came in at $68,000 plus interest plus a portion of my legal fees. My mother was ordered to repay it. She didn't have $68,000. The court established a payment plan, garnishment of wages, liens against assets. It would take years for me to see all of it. The criminal case was slower. The DA's office did eventually pursue charges: wire fraud, theft by deception. My mother accepted a plea agreement, 3 years of probation, community service, restitution built into the payment plan. No prison time, which I had mixed feelings about. The attorney said that was typical for first-time offenders in non-violent financial crimes. I had prepared myself for that answer, but it still landed strangely. Brooke's wedding happened. I was not invited. I saw the photos on Instagram 3 weeks later because I had forgotten to mute her account. A white tent somewhere in the desert. Flowers everywhere, my sister in the dress that I had, in some technical sense, paid for. I muted the account. I want to talk about the credit situation because this is the part people always ask about. When the fraud was discovered and the police report was filed, I contacted all 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and placed a fraud alert and then a credit freeze on my file. I filed an identity theft report with the FTC through Identity Theft Gov, which generated an official recovery plan. Because the unauthorized access had involved my own account rather than a stolen identity, the credit impact was limited. The transfers themselves didn't show up on my credit report. What did affect my credit temporarily was a loan application someone had submitted in my name. I found it during a full audit of my financial accounts, a signature that was not mine. That became a separate element of the criminal case. The freeze and the fraud alert meant no new accounts could be opened without additional verification. The fraudulent loan application was disputed and removed within 60 days. My credit score, which had taken a hit from the account irregularities, recovered within about 8 months. I'm telling you this specifically because nobody told me this process clearly when I needed it. And I spent 2 weeks thinking my credit was permanently destroyed. It is not a permanent situation. There are steps, and the steps work. What I didn't expect was how much space the whole thing would take up inside me. Not the anger. I had planned for anger, had prepared myself for it like bad weather. What I hadn't planned for was the grief. Grief is the right word. Not for the money, though losing 3 years of savings hurt in a practical daily way. You notice it every time a repair comes up, every time a financial decision feels smaller than it should. The grief was for the version of my family I had maintained in my head, despite all evidence to the contrary. The version where my mother loved both her daughters, just differently. The version where Brooke and I might someday be close once we were older, once the favoritism felt less urgent. That version doesn't exist. I think I knew that before London. I think the bank statement just made it impossible to pretend otherwise. I changed the locks on my apartment. I removed my mother as an authorized user on every account I hold. I opened 2 new accounts at a different bank entirely. One checking, one savings, and the savings account has exactly one authorized user, me. Just me. I also, and I say this without drama, removed myself from my family. Not in a scene, not in a confrontation. I sent one email, clearly written, to both my mother and my sister. I said that I would not be participating in family events or holidays going forward, that I wished them well, and that any further communication about the legal proceedings should go through Christine. My mother replied with 3 paragraphs about how I was destroying the family. I read it once, filed it, and have not responded. People ask me sometimes whether I regret pursuing the case, whether the money was worth the fallout. I think they're asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether the money was worth the fallout. The fallout was always there. My mother was always capable of doing exactly what she did. I just gave her 11 weeks and account access to make it visible. The legal process didn't create a fracture in my family. It just stopped me from being the one who paid to paper over the fracture forever. That's what I was for 31 years, the one who paid, in work and patience and swallowed feelings, and Walmart gift cards accepted with a smile. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm still in the same apartment. The plant on my balcony is still alive, somehow. It survived 3 months of my mother supposedly watering it, which strikes me now as faintly ironic. I am still a compliance auditor. I am still organized, still have the spreadsheet, still have the important documents folder. I started rebuilding my savings the month after the judgment. It's slow. It's slower than it would have been if I hadn't had to start over. But it exists, and it's mine. And the only name on any account is mine. Last month I received the first garnishment payment from my mother's wages. It was $400. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad exactly. I felt clear, the way the air feels after it rains and the pressure finally breaks. $400 toward $68,000. 47 more years at this rate, or thereabouts, though the schedule will accelerate. Either way, the math as usual is not in my favor, but I understand the math now. I understand exactly what was taken and how. And that's more than I had before. That, at least, is not nothing. I've had a lot of time to think about why it took me so long to see clearly. Not the fraud. The fraud was hidden from me. I mean the other thing. The pattern I lived inside for 31 years and called normal. The one where I worked harder and asked for less and told myself that was just who I was, that it was fine, that someday the balance would shift. It doesn't shift on its own. That's what I know now. What happened to me? What my mother did, what my sister accepted without question, wasn't random. It was the natural end of a long road I'd been walking without fully looking at. Every time I accepted less and said nothing, I was teaching the people around me what I was worth. Not because I deserved what happened. Nobody deserves that. But because the cost of my silence, compounded over years, eventually became $68,000 and a card in the mail that said maybe I shouldn't have existed at all. That's the part that used to keep me up at night, not the money, the card. And then I think about Christine sitting across from me, calm and clear, laying out exactly what had been done and exactly what I could do about it. I think about myself at that kitchen table in the morning light, hands still, scrolling through transaction after transaction and not collapsing, not calling my mother and begging her to explain it away, just looking at it, just seeing it for what it was. That steadiness, I didn't know I had it until I needed it, and I think that's how it works for most people. You don't find out what you're capable of in the good years. You find out in the Sunday morning when the number on the screen is wrong and everything you thought was safe turns out not to be. What I did wasn't brave in some dramatic way. I made appointments, I answered questions, I kept records, I let the legal process do what legal processes exist to do. What took courage wasn't any single moment, it was just refusing, over and over, to pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen. My mother made choices, 17 of them, spread across 9 weeks, while I was 11 time zones away trusting her. Every one of those choices had a consequence she didn't anticipate, because she had spent 31 years watching me absorb consequences quietly and assumed this time would be the same. It wasn't. And Brooke, I don't hate my sister. I've thought about this carefully because hating her would be easier in some ways, but she made her own choices too. She accepted a wedding funded by money that wasn't hers and said nothing, and she'll carry that. Not as punishment from anyone outside herself, just as the weight of knowing that tends to be heavier than people expect. What I want, the only thing I've ever wanted, looking back, was to be treated like I mattered equally. I spent 3 decades hoping someone else would decide that on my behalf. The thing I learned, the hard way and the expensive way, is that nobody grants you that. You have to stop accepting the alternative. You have to look at the number on the screen and make the appointment and put the card in the folder and keep going. I kept going. The savings account is smaller than it was. The family is gone. The plant on my balcony is inexplicably fine. I am on balance also fine.